Welcome to the Gimme, presented by BetMGM. Why the Gimme? Because it's good. That's why. Hope you enjoyed your 64 hours of PGA Tour offseason. Yes, 64 hours. That's how long it will be from the final putt dropping at East Lake for the Tour Championship on Monday afternoon until the first tee time tomorrow morning in Napa at Silverado Resort and Spa for the Safeway Open. I'm Jason Sobel from Golf Bet alongside, as always, my friends Peter Jennings and Amanda Rose for the next half hour. We've got a great giveaway later for one unlucky, maybe / a little lucky viewer. We'll tell you all about that in a little bit. And first, one player that we're going to be talking about for the next half hour here on the Gimme. Amanda, who you got?
I'm going to be talking about Ryan Armour a little bit later in the show.
I like it, Pete.
I'm going to be talking about the two-time defending champion of the Safeway Open, our friend Brendan Steele.
Oh, we had him on the Action Network podcast this week. You guys should check that out. But I'm going away from Steely for now and going towards Joel Damon, a West Coaster who's played really well on the West Coast throughout his career, still searching for that first career PGA Tour victory. And maybe, just maybe, it'll happen this week. We'll talk about those players and more coming up over the next half an hour. But let's first start talking about some of the big names there. And there aren't too many. There aren't a whole lot of players who decided to crisscross the country from East Lake to Napa, then go back to Winged Foot for the U.S. Open next week. So not a lot of big names in the field, but there are some volatile names. Four of the biggest names in the field might be four of the most volatile players on the PGA Tour. And don't get me wrong, save the mean tweets and the hate mail. I'm not saying volatile as in they throw their clubs and they swear at tournament officials. Not that kind of volatility. I'm talking about the kind of on-course volatility that you get from players who have high ceilings, meaning they can win on any given week, and low floors, meaning, when it's not good, it's really not good. Four of those guys we've got in the field this week. Phil Mickelson, who is 22-1, one of the co-favorites coming into the Safeway Open. Siwoo Kim, also a 22-1 co-favorite. Sergio Garcia, 30-1. Jordan Spieth, 33-1. I told you, a lot of volatility in there. You got to buy one. You got to sell one. Peter Jennings, where are you starting?
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, these are high variance players and they're at the top of the board. And normally we see shorter odds when you have, the John Rahms and Dustin Johnsons, they're that 10 to 12 to 1 range. And here, the big favorites are 22-1. So it's it's showing the variance of these guys, and it's really tough out of these four because, like you said, all of them can play well and all of them can play really poorly. Of the guys that I feel the most confident to play well, it's Sergio Garcia, who I think is by far the best ball striker of the group. He's had his ups and downs, especially after winning the Masters, but I think his ball striking is really coming around this year. So I like buying Sergio, and I feel confident the most in selling Siwoo, who is certainly playing good golf. He's been consistent lately, which is surprising. He's really come around and he's playing great golf. But you look previous to the year, he had 4 straight missed cuts. He's one of the most volatile golfers on the tour. His bad golf, like you mentioned, is probably the worst of anyone in the field that's 100-1 or less. So I don't mind Siwoo as an outright pick or a top 5 bet maybe, but he's priced as the favorite in make miss cut and in matchup. So I'm selling that. Amanda, who are you buying and who are you selling?
So, Pete, I 100% agree with you in terms of selling Siwoo. He missed a buttload of cuts early in the season. Okay, he had good showing at the PGA, had a good showing at Wyndham, but no, not for that price. Like you're saying, he's like a pair of Balenciagas, right? So Balenciagas are like $1,000 pair of sneakers. They're really ugly and they're terrible. So I don't want to buy a pair of Balenciaga sneakers. Sorry, Siwoo Balenciaga, sir. No, thank you. I'm going to buy Phil Mickelson. The reason being, the last 4 years when he's played in the event, over those 24 rounds, he leads in strokes gained total over everyone in the field. That includes your guys' buddy, Brendan Steele, another guy who plays the course well. So I like Phil Mickelson here. He's finished 8th, 3rd, 17th, missed the cut last year. That's his only missed cut. However, his putting statistics around the green, short game, are really, really good at this course. He can putt greens. So I like Phil Mickelson. He's my buy. Now, I have a feeling that Jason might be buying someone different than me.
Well, first of all, Amanda, Peter's looking at you funny because he doesn't know what ugly sneakers even look like. He didn't know they make them. So he only goes for top of the line, really pretty looking shoes, as you can see in the background. Amanda, I want to go with you. As mentioned earlier, we had Brendan Steele on the Action Network podcast this week. He's playing with Phil Mickelson over the first 2 rounds. He told us a story a few years ago. He was playing with Phil at this very golf tournament. Phil was fresh off either the Ryder Cup or the President's Cup. They got to the first tee, and Phil said, I'm just glad I'm playing with you. They're friends. He said, I'm going to hit 5 balls out of bounds. I'm not feeling it. I'm so tired. What did he do? He went out and shot 63 that day. So Phil obviously has it in him to put together a really good round on this golf course, but I'm not quite buying him. I'm buying Sergio Garcia. I just feel like the volatility is a little bit less when it comes to Sergio's terms than anybody else. I think that he's using this week more as prep for next week's US Open than anything else. That said, just too good of a ball striker to really go too far down the leaderboard. As for the sell, I'm with you guys. The whole fun of betting on Siwoo Kim is because he's usually 150 to 1, 200 to 1 in a good field, where we look at him and we say, well, when he's on, he's really on. We've seen him win the Players Championship. We've seen him beat world-class players. He's a great ball striker when it's all working for him. But at 22 to 1, that ain't no fun. I don't want Siwoo at that number whatsoever. So we are all selling Siwoo Kim. Sorry, Siwoo, but you still get to be one of the co-favorites. By the way, Peter, you made a really good point. The favorites this week at 22 to 1, that's about as high a price as we'll see for PGA Tour favorites the entire year. It tells us the odds makers are very spread out and the public's very spread out this week. Let's get to this host venue, Silverado Resort and Spa, a 7,166-yard par 72. Not the longest course, we'll see, right in the middle of Napa, wine country. Maybe not quite as fun as in a non-pandemic year, but still, they might deliver a couple of nice bottles to your room if you're a player this week. The defending champion is indeed the champ, Cam Champ, but he is not playing this week after reaching the Tour Championship and having the U.S. Open up ahead next week. The weather, well, it was snowing this morning. That's right. It was snowing ash from the wildfires out west. Really terrible stuff. We've all seen the pictures on the news, on social media so far. It was dark out. I heard from one player at 9:30 this morning Pacific time on the range. The lights were on. Players hitting balls on the range could not see them landing. Hopefully that changes. Hopefully the weather turns, the wind starts blowing, and we get to some clarity literally for the next couple of rounds. But enough about the course. Let's get into our favorite props. Amanda, where are you looking this week?
So I'm going to look at a guy that I know you like this week, Jason, Joel Damon. Since July, he has just continued to play well. He had a great 2020 season, earned $2.1 million without a win. That's a lot of cash. That's a lot of Balenciagas, okay? I'm not a mathematician, but I could do that. So I like him. He seems to play really well in kind of lower pressure rounds and tournaments. You know, you saw him in Arizona playing a mini tour event, and he played really well. He goes out and plays with his buddies. He shoots 58. Like, he's just one of those guys where if he's kind of at a better odds to win, he's probably going to go out and play well. So I really like Joel Damon for a top 5 pick this week, sir.
All right. I'm with you on that, Peter.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. I'm going with Carlos Ortiz as a top 10 bet, but MGM is about plus 550 right now, which is a great price. One advantage to betting at MGM, especially for finishing positions, is you don't have to apply dead heat rules. So you get ties paid out in full, which is fantastic. And Ortiz, I think, is a screaming value at this price. He is way too good of a golfer, played in the BMW, finished 25th, and just you look at his results and kind of where he's played as a golfer over the last couple of years, he is much higher relative to the rest of this field. And I don't understand why he's kind of priced where he is. So I love buying Ortiz. I like him in all formats, and I especially like investing him in finishing position bets this week.
So
where are you going, Jason?
I want to follow up because I feel like there are a few players this week who are not priced up to their talent level. I'm going to give you one in a second here, but what do you do when you find these players in general, not necessarily specific to this week, but in general, when you see a guy on the board and you say, he's better than that number next to his name, how do you play those in general?
Yeah, so my favorite way to play that is with the top 10, top 20 bets. I think those are the least amount of variance, but still nice upside. And oftentimes when they're mispriced that way, that's where you're going to show the most EV. Of course, I like to buy these guys in daily fantasy on DraftKings as well. But I think the finishing possession bets, specifically on MGM, are really plus EV when you find a golfer who's mispriced. And I know you have a guy that you believe is mispriced as well that I think we agree on.
I might have a few of them coming up. The first
Ooh.
one is Patrick Rogers, who is, uh, I think, just way too low on the board this week. He just for a top 20 alone, he's about 3-1. Patrick Rogers is one of these class of 2011 guys, along with Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Daniel Berger, Emiliano Grillo, a whole bunch of them. And at some point, Rogers sort of got lapped a little bit by some of these guys, but he still owns a world of talent. Played his college golf at Stanford. He was all everything as a collegiate golfer. I love him coming back to the West Coast, where I think he should be able to play some really good golf, and I think he is very undervalued in the market. I want to get into some of our favorite matchups this week, and I've got another guy in matchups this week, Peter, who I just think is completely undervalued. Ches Reavie this week is the underdog in a matchup against the guy I just mentioned, Emiliano Grillo. He is even money. And that is the underdog with the juice there. Even money. Ches Reavie is 41st in the world. Emiliano Grillo is 148th. Ches Reavie in his last 12 starts has 6 top 30 finishes. Grillo in his last 12 starts has 2 top 30 finishes. I'm not sure how or why Ches is the underdog in this matchup. All I know is that I love it because we can take this play and run with it, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. Pete, what do you think of that matchup, and where are you going with your favorite this week?
Yeah, I love that matchup. We're huge fans of Ches, one of the best ball strikers out there. So is Grillo. Both these guys are kind of similar players, but agree, Ches is playing much better, and Grillo's just getting a bump for the course history, which probably is overdone by the markets in this case. I think Ches Reavie plays a lot of golf on the West Coast and just such an elite ball striker. And I think these greens actually mitigate putting a little bit, given how sloped and challenging they are. So I really like Ches. I think that's a great matchup bet. I have another one. I'm going back to my guy Ortiz over Tringali. It's a coin flip. You lay a little juice with Ortiz at minus 110, but I feel really good about this. I have Ortiz significantly higher than Tringali. And Ortiz is doing a lot of things well from a ball striking standpoint, and he's doing extremely well around the greens, which I think is important. I think putting's a little less important. Scrambling's important. He gained a ton of strokes relative to the PGA Tour around the green last year, and I'm buying him in all formats, and this matchup is one that I'm looking at.
By the way, for whatever reason this week, and maybe it's just me, but it feels like there are a lot of really nice matchup plays at plus money going into this event. So take a good hard look at those if you're playing some different bets this week and don't want to go all in on just outrights and different top 5, top 10, top 20 types of props. Let's get to our ultimate DFS lineup. We do it every single week, picking 6 players in a DraftKings lineup and giving you a little insight as to where we're looking in DFS. Let's see. The first pick is going to go to, well, Amanda has it every single week. So Amanda, you're going to get it again. I don't know how or why this happens, but somehow you have snagged the first pick of the draft every single week. Can we make this thing a snake draft? It's fantasy football season. I get stuck with the last pick every round.
You know what, Jason? It's part of the perks of being the CEO. I don't know why this hasn't registered, but we are where we are.
So I'm some money for us.
Yeah, I will. I'm going to go with Brandt Snedeker, a guy who's going to be a little more expensive than normal this week. However, in that period of time when Phil was first in strokes gained total, Brandt is third over those 24 rounds. So I really like him here. He's never missed a cut. He's finished as high as second in 2018. And Brandt's kind of one of those good fall spring player guys. I don't know. He just kind of he's one of those guys. So I got to go with Brandt Snedeker. We'll see what his ownership ends up being this week. But I feel like of all of the higher priced guys, he's kind of one of the least volatile.
Yeah. Absolutely. At 9,300, I got no problems. You can stop making your case for Brandt. We're all in on it. Peter, where are you going?
Yeah, Brandt's the class of this field, or near the top of the field, and a great pick, Amanda. I'm going with Carlos Ortiz. Broken record here. Way too cheap. This is probably my favorite place to buy him, honestly, is on DraftKings. I will have a ton of exposure to him in all formats. Where you go,
7,100. So I don't get to spend money on here very often doing the ultimate DFS lineup. Usually I got to go dig through some pocket change and, separate it from the lint. But I get to spend some money. So I am going with Joel Damon, who we've talked about multiple times already on this show. So I'm not going to repeat why we like him. I'm just going to say I like him at 9,500. I like him in all formats this week, and especially in DFS. Amanda.
My next pick, I'm going to go with a guy that Pete has actually mentioned, Cameron Tringali. Speaking of really good fall players, Cameron Tringali, you look at where he started his career, in the fall series, he's locked up his card, or he's locked up early playing status on tour at these events. He doesn't miss cuts at this event. Granted, he usually finishes between like 50th and 30th. Whatever, it's fine because he's going to get you points in your DFS lineup. I'm not taking him for bets for whatever. I'm just picking him for the lineup. His ownership's going to be low, and he's someone that's going to pretty much guarantee a made cut.
Yeah, at 7,500, if a guy's at least giving you 4 rounds, and he doesn't necessarily have to win the golf tournament, but at least he's giving you some birdies, giving you some nice rounds. I'm okay with that, Pete.
I'm feeling left out. I want to spend some money, and I'm going to spend it on our friend Brendan Steele, who is set up so well here. There's so many things working for Brendan, and a reason why he's at the top of the board. Obviously, he's won here twice, but you look at his strokes gain numbers. Last year, he was elite in strokes gain approach. We talked about that in the podcast. He said he feels really comfortable moving the ball both ways, which enables him to, get it closer to a lot of pins. And that showed up big time in his stats, where he's gaining over half a stroke against the field on approach. Historically, one of the best drivers of the golf ball. He's led the tour in total driving before. That's actually something that hurt him a little bit last year. I expect that to regress towards the mean. And if he putts halfway decent or above average, I think he's going to contend and has a great shot to win. So Brendan Steele, 10,000, leaving you very little money. I also wanted to sting you here. So you're going to have to dig deep.
Well, first of all, Brendan Steele, again, was on the podcast with us this week. So he's putting a new Wilson driver into play, but he likes the way he's hitting it so far. The ball striking's been great. And he let in a little secret. He didn't quite say where and when, but there's a little secret about the greens at Silverado that he's figured out, being a 2-time champion, that a lot of other players without the experience won't know about this week. So there's a little inside secret for Steele this week. So yes, as mentioned, you've left me absolutely no money. Now I am digging through my pocket change, but don't worry, guys. I've got a surprise in there. I'm going Isaiah Salinda.
Ooh.
Isaiah Salinda from Northern California, was born in San Francisco, went to Stanford, where he was one of these all-everything collegiate players, a really good amateur. Just 2 weeks ago, he finished second in the local IQ series, which is giving players, don't laugh, Amanda, it's giving players
that's awesome,
below the Korn Ferry level a chance to play because some of these other tours have been canceled. This kid, in the right environment, the right conditions, and some sort of comfortability around a golf course like this at 6,200, maybe this is a smash play. We'll find out. You guys spent all my money, so I had to dig deep anyway. But I do like Salinda, and I think it's really fun and really important once again this week to dig a little bit and go for those guys who are super low priced, super low owned. You never know. I expect Salinda to be what, Pete? 1%, 2% owned this week?
I'll take under 2% for sure. And
Okay.
that makes their lineup unique, which I think is important every week.
All right. We're also going to figure out how many people are watching this show right now by how many Salinda plays are on DraftKings this coming week. So let's get to, as I mentioned, the new season starts this week. The PGA Tour is deeming it a super season. 50 events, the most in one PGA Tour season since 1975. And we're picking guys to make a big splash. And now you can interpret this in a lot of different ways, but looking at a player who you think you're going to bet on a lot over the next 50 tournaments, a guy who is probably a little undervalued in the markets, a guy who you like to make a leap to the next level, a guy who you think can go out there and win at some point. Amanda, who is that player for you?
So for me, that guy is going to be Abraham Answer. He's someone I was very bullish on all season. If I had the opportunity to bet more than like $30 a week on him. I probably would. I'm glad I haven't, and I'm, just waiting for the opportunity for him to win. But I really like him. He's top 20 in scoring average on tour, 22nd in the official World Golf Rankings. It would not shock me in the next 5 years to see him with at least 10 PGA Tour events and at least one major. I think he's really talented, and I think this could be a big year for him.
I love it. Going big on Abraham Answer, the 22nd ranked player in the world. Peter?
Yeah, I have a guy that I think is wildly underrated right now. Really just needs to figure out one element of his game, and that's Corey Connors. One of the best ball strikers on tour, consistently one of the best drivers of the golf ball, led in proximity 2 seasons ago, and just an unbelievable ball striking clinic from Corey Connors throughout the year. He struggles around the greens, and he really struggles on the greens. And I think that's an easier part of the game to clean up. And if he can become average in both those categories, we're going to see a lot of Corey Connors near the top of the leaderboard. And I think we'll see some wins out of Corey Connors as well. And at that 70th position, I expect him to creep into the top 50 by the end of this season. Jason, who are you buying for this upcoming season?
Yeah, by the way, Pete, we'll have to do one of these shows for TSN or some channel up in Canada and debate the best Canadian in the world right now. It's a good conversation with Connors and Mackenzie Hughes and Adam Hadwin. There's some good players out there coming from the Great White North. I am going with a guy that I've bet on a decent amount already, and I'm going to keep betting on the 97th ranked player in the world. I expect at this point next year for him to be, at least half that, if not better. He's going to be a top 30, top 40 player on the world ranking. That's Doc Redman, the former Clemson All-American. We've seen him contend on the PGA Tour already. His ball striking numbers were absolutely fantastic during the season that just ended. 30th on the PGA Tour in strokes gained off the tee, 11th in strokes gained on approach shots, much like Corey Connors, who you just mentioned, Peter, much like Abraham Answer, Amanda, who you mentioned. If Doc Redman gets just a little bit hot with the putter, watch out, because those ball striking numbers are really, really solid. So those are players that we like for the next 51 weeks and beyond, the next 50 tournaments on this PGA Tour super season. But let's get back to this week. Let's get back to the Safeway Open, and let's get to our perfect portfolio. We do it every single week. Some of us have $100 from the company to spend. I do. Peter's
got a lot of cash here. I'm
believing a little bit. I think that's at least 100 I see in there. Amanda, not quite as much, but you know what? The reason we do this is because it doesn't matter how much you're betting. It doesn't matter if you're a high stakes, high volume bettor. It doesn't matter if you're taking one full dollar and putting it on one player to win outright every single week. That's fun too. And so it's all about the fact that we all want winners. You can see our last week's totals there on the screen. Unfortunately, look away, avert your eyes. You don't want to look at those. Last week was a bad one. The week before, that was great. We did really well with the week before that. Last week, it's tough. There are only 30 players. We need more players to pick from, and we've got that this week. Pete, where are you spending your money in the portfolio this week?
Yeah, we missed last week, and it's no excuse, but I do think in general, if you're handicapping golf, you're going to have more of an edge with a bigger field. And I think specifically for me, I love weeks like this where you don't have as many big names and you have to really dig through all the players. So I feel great about this week. I think there's a lot of value in the betting markets. And I'm going to go to my favorite guy, the bet I mentioned already, Ortiz. I'm going to spend half of my $100 there. I'm not going to go into it any further. I just think he's wildly mispriced, potentially the most mispriced player in the field. The next guy I'm going to go with is a high variance pick, and I'm going to play him in a high variance way. Aaron Wise. I'm going to spend $25 on Aaron Wise to be top 5. I've been really on this guy. Based on my numbers, he was the unluckiest golfer last year. Same kind of problem as Connors and Doc Redman. Really good ball striking, horrible putting, made some really bad numbers, missed the cut on the number multiple times last season. So Aaron Wise, big pedigree coming up. This is a weaker field. Maybe he can get some confidence in this new season. And then, of course, Brendan Steele, who as an outright, I probably am going to stay away. But at top 10, plus 260, especially at MGM where ties are fine. You get paid out in full.
Yeah.
I really like him. He is so good in terms of his ball striking. He loves this place. And I think Brendan Steele is going to contend. So I love him as a top 10 bet at plus 260. Amanda, how are you spending your money this week?
So we actually agree with the Aaron Wise pick. I'm going to start with my first pick, which is going to be the $6 on Joel Damon outright. Jason, you and I have talked about him already. He's been trending up. He's been playing well. It's going to happen soon. I can give you 2.1 million reasons why I think he's going to play well in this event. He seems to play well at events with lower world ranking points in them. And then Aaron Wise, like Pete said, he is really unlucky. I mean, he missed the cut in 4 of the last events. His playing wasn't terrible, but he still missed the cut. He missed the playoffs, but he likes West Coast golf. I think that this would be a good opportunity for him to start playing better. I think it's kind of like a fresh start, a reset from that weird lull in the spring and whatnot. And then my last pick is going to be Ryan Armour. He's a guy that I absolutely love. He throws in random top 10 picks. I think one time I put $1 down on him and I came out like $70 because he finished top 10. I forgot I bet on him, but you know what? I made a lot of money that week. So I really like Ryan Armour, and he's really, really good on shootout courses and courses where it's easier conditions. And I think Silverado, any kind of resort course, is going to fit his game.
The best bets are the ones you forget about that wind up winning. I love those bets. It happens to me every once in a while too. I am on the same page with a few of those bets with you guys. I'm taking my hundo and spending $50 on Brendan Steele for a top 10, just like you, Peter. Had him on the Action Network podcast, as we mentioned. We can talk all about the course history. He's got 2 wins there. We can talk all about the ball striking numbers. We can talk all about the course insight. I want to talk about the fact that, as we mentioned on the podcast, he and I are playing each other week 1 in our fantasy football season. I expect him to be very angry on Sunday afternoon, and I expect him to take that anger, use it as fuel against the rest of the field, and go take it out on those guys and win this golf tournament, or at least contend for a title on Sunday. So Brendan Steele, top 10, $25 going towards Joel Damon for a top 10. Obviously like that. We've talked enough about him. And again, as I mentioned earlier, Patrick Rogers, I think, is severely undervalued in the market. $25 on a Patrick Rogers top 20 this week. And if you want to go top 10 on Rogers, I don't hate you for that. I don't think that's a bad play whatsoever. Let's get to our long shot, no shot. We asked for your best/worst bets for this week's Safeway Open. You guys, as always, did not disappoint. There's some doozies out there. The winner, as always, will win this nice golf bet hat. Boy, I love mine. You're going to love yours for making your terrible bet. Amanda, who's the biggest loser this week?
So I'm going to have to start with runner-up. Was a pick of a guy that you guys have talked about a lot tonight, Patrick Rogers. The reason that one didn't win was because I think Patrick Rogers, it actually wouldn't shock me if he won. So that doesn't deserve to win because I think he's pretty good. That is a good bet. That's why he doesn't deserve the worst hat bet. So the winner is going to be Peter Uihlein. I'm sorry. He has not been playing that great lately. He's just been really up and down, and I respect his game. I think he was a phenomenal amateur, but I think he's kind of disappointed us in his pro career. And it makes me sad because I like him, but it's our
If I
winner.
had a hat for every time I bet on Peter Uihlein over the last few years, I'd have a lot of hats. At some point, I'm telling you, I talked to a handful of players, professional golfers still trying to make it, who played with Peter Uihlein when he was coming up through the junior ranks, who go, he was awesome. Like, he was like, you put Uihlein and Brooks Koepka next to each other, it was no contest. He was way better than Brooks Koepka back then. Things have changed just a little bit. Now Brooks Koepka not playing in the U.S. Open, but oh, by the way, he's a 4-time major winner. Peter Uihlein is getting made fun of for people who are betting on him outright. So we do wish Peter Uihlein well, and we will send a hat to that one unlucky viewer. Guys, we've got just 2 minutes left here. Let's get to our long shots. Guys that we might like, just a name we haven't really mentioned yet this show, even though we've gone for close to 30 minutes now. Amanda, who do you got?
So I have Ryan Armour. I know that shouldn't shock you. Like I said, I freaking love this guy. I'm taking Ryan Armour outright. Like I said, he plays well on these shootout courses. I like Ryan Armour. What about you guys?
Why not? Like the conviction. Pete, where are you going? With just one guy? Just kind of, hey, throw a dart.
Yeah, I already mentioned Aaron Wise, and I think he's a great long shot bet. You're getting him at 100 to 1 or better, depending where you look. I think he's a really strong outright bet as well, just given the variance. 2 seasons ago, he made the exact same amount of birdies as Rory McIlroy. This guy is a high variance player who can get really, really hot. Like Amanda mentioned, I think there's something to just, hey, resetting, new season, playing against a weaker field. Aaron Wise had an amazing pedigree as an amateur. I think he's going to show out at some point early in this season. So I like him at over 100 to 1. I don't think we'll see that number as often this year.
I am very bullish over the long term on Aaron Wise. I agree with you. He was just too talented a player over his first couple of years, rookie of the year a few years ago, that he won't at some point get that back. My guy this week, Brandon Hagee. I mentioned guys who are volatile earlier in the show. He's got a high ceiling, a low floor on any given week. He can play well. Went to Cal. He's a California kid. He's a big hitter, I believe, only behind Bryson DeChambeau and Cameron Champ on the driving distance leaders last season. So like Brandon Hagee a lot this week. And thank you to everybody for watching this show. We've mentioned a whole lot of names for this week's Safeway Open. It's going to be a fun one. The season is just getting started. We got 50 events coming up. Can't wait for it. Thanks for watching the Gimme. Here's hoping you hit the green.